want to affirm and just say, parents, you matter. Moms and dads, you matter more than you could ever maybe see in the moment. But for the rest of life, you're going to have a voice into these little or big human beings, because if they're little now, they will grow up, but you're gonna have a voice into their lives that no one else will, and your voice is gonna matter. And like I said last week, remember the goal. If you have small kids, if you have troubled kids right now, remember the goal is relationship, and just find wisdom in Jesus. The Holy Spirit is our helper. He's our wisdom. When we seek his face, you know what? He's going to help you to find that little connection, a conversation. Be on your guard. Pray. Pray at all time. You can do that when you have the Holy Spirit. This is a reason why I follow Jesus. I'm going to be honest with you. Parenting is no small thing. It's a biggest thing that you will ever do, the biggest responsibility in your life. You might have the greatest career, but you know what? When it comes to parenting, I think that is the biggest thing that we can put our hands to. And let's come to it with that respect, realizing I don't have it in me to do this. I need Jesus. I need people around me. I need my spouse, or maybe it's families that are split up, but you need that dad on your side. Do it together for your children. If you are in a separated state or divorced state, you know, major on the majors. Your kids matter, and you will be happy and grateful that you did.
Yeah, one of the things we'll be starting with our Connect groups. And if you haven't got into a Connect group yet, I encourage you to get into a Connect group. They're all different kinds of categories and topics. And in the new year, there's going to be like, divorce care. We want to start blended family because that's very common. And so, and I tell you what, you need a lot of wisdom. And so, the world doesn't put a lot of value on parenting. It's all about career, or whatever it might be. And so this woman, mother of four, was flying on an airplane and sitting by a very arrogant, condescending lawyer who was, kind of minimizing, her job as just being a housewife. And so, he kind of asked her, so what do you actually do? And so she gave this response. She says, I'm in charge of socializing four Homo sapiens in the dominant values of the Judeo-Christian tradition in order that they might be instruments of the transformation of the social order into the teleological described utopian in the inherent echelon that God prescribes. And then she looks at the lawyer and says, and what do you do? Oh, just the lawyer? Okay, so parents, this is massive what we're doing. And so let's talk about intentional parenting. We're going to get into we'll try to tackle about 3 of the questions that came in. And then next week, we're going to have our kids up here. All right. So today, a lot of this is going to be, we're nervous. All right. We don't know what they're going to say. But we're probably going to be gone. Let's go. No, but we'll talk more about, parenting intentionally with your younger kids. But our kids are all in their 20s now. One's turning 30 in November. But, they're going to talk about what's happening with that preteen, teenage, because they're all engaged in ministering to the youth here, and they're in touch. And so they're going to help you parents, and let you know what your kids are battling and what, there'll be some questions that they will answer. And so we hope to cover both of them. And then next year we'll do the parenting seminar, especially along some of these issues that I previously mentioned. All right. So here's a great scripture to start with. It's called the Shema. And this is how the Jewish people, they start every prayer by quoting the Shema that's found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. Let me read you verses 4 to 7. It says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. So where does it start with? It starts with you parents. And you, not the government, not the youth pastor, not the pastor, you shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in the house, not when you take them to Sunday school or drop them off for youth, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. So the number one job of a pastor, of a parent, all these P words, pastor, parent, pastor. Anyway, but it is to disciple and teach your kids. That's your job, is to disciple your family. And as first these words got, because some things are taught, but most things are caught. And so if the word matters to you and you love God and it's in your heart, your job is to pass that on in everyday lifestyle. You don't compartmentalize your life and say, oh, it's just on Sunday morning, but I'm going to do whatever I want. No, it's taking opportunity as you're driving them to school in the morning, as you sit around the dinner table, as you walk on the way. You know what? That's when you take opportunity. So you want to read that verse?
I will read that verse.
Yes.
It's in Proverbs, and most of you have heard it. It's from 22nd verse 6. Proverbs 22:6. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. That train is, like I said, 24/7, pretty much. The good things is that actually parenting is very developing for a human being. We can become better because of it. But training, that is happening within the household, at all times, pretty much. When you have an opportunity, that is where the training is happening. The conversations, I was thinking about previous service, and just, when does it happen? You know what? It's when you drive your kids, you're sitting beside, next to them, over the table, when you're eating your meals, at nighttime. There's so many great opportunities where actually, the training at all times, we train up a child in the way it should go, and when they get old, they don't depart from it. What you're doing today, you're actually, it's another generation. Think about that. As you're training up your kids, well, that son or that daughter is going to train their kids.
And I think it's all in. You know what? Training doesn't mean I dropped them off at Sunday school. Training does not mean I took them to church. Training does not mean I dropped them off at youth on a Friday night. Training means you're all in, that you are the one responsible to do this. And so some of us, like when we got married, we didn't come from Christian homes. And so, maybe you came from maybe a dysfunctional family, or you come like, well, every family's got a certain level of dysfunction. Let's just be honest. And even ours, it's not my fault, but other people. But and so if you don't get a biblical vision of what a healthy family looks like, you're going to default to what you saw growing up. Well, my father was quiet. He never expressed emotion. He never said, "I love you." I knew I was loved, but he just never said it, because he never heard it. And so that I thought was normal. Madeleine would just say to me, "Anthony, you're starving me emotionally. You don't speak." But that's the model that I saw. So we want to paint a picture of a different model. We had to change that picture in us. So what we do, we studied, we read books, we got around healthy families. We made this priority. We had to learn, how do you do this, because we just didn't know, and we're still learning. I'm still in that mode, and the day you stop learning is the day you die. So stop dying, get learning. So let's look at the first question. Number one, okay. This was a great question. How do I discipline my child without hurting them or killing them? I know parents, we've all felt that way, God keep them alive, But how do we discipline children? And so I think part of this question might be, do you spank or not to spank? Or it might be, how do you do this? Well, whether you spank or not, that's up to you, make that decision. There's a big difference between spanking and hitting your kids. And we did spank, I'm gonna be honest with you. The more I study this, I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, I did it. She left it to me. I had to do the spanking.
The dirty work I left with him.
Because in Sweden, you go to jail if you spank your kids. They consider it child abuse. And the way some people spank, it is child abuse. If you're angry and you hit your child, that's abuse. You should go to jail. Never in anger. Never. Now, and we did it up until I did it, or up to in the early years. But as we got older, we used other, and you can use other options. For example, timeouts, or they lose a privilege. They don't get TV time or go outside and play. Whatever you decide. But I think there's some certain things that we put into practice, and we when it came to disciplining our kids, we had four values. There was four things we felt were very important to raise up our children. And so these were four non-negotiables, right? Now we never discipline. Let me use the word discipline, okay? Now some people think, well, the rod of discipline. Well, the rod, the shepherd had a staff or a rod. Sometimes it was for, just coaching the sheep which way to go. And it was also used to bonk wolves. If wolves came, you killed the wolf. So it's not always used for spanking, okay? And so just put that in your mindset, because let's not even go there. But anyway, there was the four values. The four values that number one was defiance against authority, right? That was a disciplinary effect, action. If you defied authority, if you intentionally harmed somebody, if you intentionally destroyed property, or if you were willful disobedience, those were the four things. We only disciplined for those four things. If the kid drops a glass of milk or makes a mistake, they don't get disciplined for that. Matter of fact, one of our kids, he was famous for always spilling stuff. And I won't tell you which one of it was, but his name was Ben Spiller, is the nickname we gave him. And so we looked. So these were the four things. And so the way we disciplined was, or the way I disciplined, so and we used the red hot stove rule, right? Meaning this, that as soon as you touch it, you get burned, don't you? So it's immediate. We did none of this, wait till your father gets home, no, you deal with it immediately. Number two, it's the same consequence regardless who touches it, right? And it's the same effect. So we tried. I think consistency was the big thing. We had to be consistent, and because you cannot. Well, okay, this time I'll let you off the hook. Because the next time say, well, last week you let me off the hook when I punched Gabriel in the eye. How come this week I get punished for it? No, you got to be consistent.
Yes, and then when you have siblings, when you have several kids, I mean, a lot of your time goes into just like refereeing. Absolutely, who hit first, what not, but so it's about protecting the other siblings as well, so correction. I am all about correction. I mean, that is what we are responsible to do as a parent. We correct, we rebuke, and we discipline. But I'm just saying, disciplining can be done in different ways. When the children are small, of course, you speak, you use your words and your tone of your tone. So if you have a 1-year-old, or maybe even to 15 months, I mean, they don't know what's right and wrong, or what's dangerous for them, or what's safe for them. That's where you start your parenting, because you're there to protect. You're there because you love this little thing, and you cannot, barely sleep because you feel like you need to be there to protect. So you say, no, you can't touch the fireplace and whatever. You know what? It can be like a little, no, you cannot touch. That's dangerous. And that's how kids start even hearing your tone of voice. So a lot of things, like how I, train my kids. It was a lot of discipline, just from actually talking, and with my tone of voice, and till this day I do that. They know, and they can read your face, your body language. It's if depending on the personality of your child, you got to know who you're dealing with. But we don't want to break our kids, we just want to bend their little attitude. And that was often how when we were, my kids, it was like, I need a change of attitude.
Which I thought was brilliant. Like one of our kids, who won't be named, so she sent him upstairs for a timeout, and then he came tromping out of the room, like stomping, like he served his 15-minute jail time. Now he was free, but he still had that attitude. And so Madeline says, no, you need to go back up there, come down the stairs with a different attitude. No. And it was quite funny because she wouldn't let him off the hook, because what did you want? And so why would you do that? We want him to come down with good attitude, with soft feet. What are we saying? Why is that important? We want the kids to know that they can control their emotions and that the emotions don't control them. Isn't that a healthy person? Doesn't that create a safe person that you want your daughter to marry?
Yeah. You know what?
It was Ben, by the way.
Yeah.
He's single.
She would be like, and all those moments, honestly, kids have a sense of humor. I mean, sometimes it would just like crack up, and it becomes a funny thing. But you know what? Next week, we're gonna let them talk, because if you hear from them, they're actually gonna say, "I needed that. I needed that." Sometimes they need it, that even physical a correction. But when it comes to disciplining, correcting, and also rebuking, I mean, that is our responsibility. And if you shy away from that, well, that is actually, I'm sorry. Some days I remember that's all I did. And you know what? Major on the majors. Like Anthony said, we had 4 things that they were disciplined for. But you don't discipline for everything, because then you won't have a life, okay? But just decide, okay? I didn't see that. I didn't. Maybe you just do. I saw that, but you're getting away with that. But I saw it. You got to create some clarity. But can I just read a scripture from the Message translation? It's just awesome. If you are sitting here and you're feeling like, no, it just takes too much of my time. I'm so stressed out. I feel so overwhelmed. Okay, but this is what it says in Hebrews 12. So don't feel sorry for yourselves. Or have you forgotten how good parents treat children, and that God regards you as his children? My dear children, don't shrug off God's discipline, but don't be crushed by it either. It's the child he loves that he disciplines. The child he embraces, he also corrects. God is educating you. That's why you must never drop out. He's treating you as dear children. This trouble you're in isn't a punishment, it's training, the normal experience of children. Only irresponsible parents leave children to fend for themselves. Would you prefer an irresponsible God? We respect our own parents for training and not spoiling us. So why not embrace God's training so we can truly live? That is what you're doing. You are training up kids that you actually like. And you like to spend time with them. Train up your kids in such a way that you want to spend time with them, do things with them.
I think, good news, bad news. The bad news is it's painful. You got 2 pains. It's the pain of discipline, and sometimes felt like that's all we were doing was disciplining. Like, are they ever going to get? And it was, and it's traumatic when you have, I found it difficult. I didn't like doing it. But I knew that I had to do it because there's two kinds of pain. There's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You're gonna have pain in doing this, parents, okay? You're gonna have pain, but that's the bad news. The good news is you get to choose your pain. I decided I want to choose the pain of discipline rather than the pain of regret. That's the pain I don't want to have. And I have regrets. Yeah, I do have regrets. But you know what? Let's do the hard stuff first. So let me give you an example of how we disciplined our kids. So let's pick on Ben. So he'll be here next weekend. So, okay, he does something wrong. So, okay, first of all, maybe I needed the timeout first because I said never in anger. Okay, so I'd have to get into a right frame of mind, think it through, send him to the room, which they know what's coming, and so that time is really good. I mean, every second feels like an eternity for them. You go to your room and think about what you've done, and then you get yourself calm because you don't ever want to do it out of anger. So then when I got calm, and then sometimes when I got calm, I didn't feel like I wanted to discipline them, right? But no, it's about principles. It's about why do I want them to be obedient to authority? Because listen, I want them to respect that we're all under authority. We're not, you know what? I'm under God's authority. I'm under the authority of the Word of God. I wanted them to learn how to respond to proper authority. And so anyway, I would walk in there and I would say, all right, and I said, now, what are the 4 rules? And they would name it. And I said, and which one did you break? And how did you break it? And I said, and what's the consequences? They said, Mr. Spoon. We had a wooden spoon. But it was a kind discipline because Madeleine drew a happy face on Mr. Spoon. I didn't believe that the hand should be for discipline. The hand should be love and for attention, caressing. So we used a little wooden spoon for a while. Eventually it came to the point that if you just opened that drawer where Mr. Spoon was in, everything would just calm right down. So then what we would do, I'd talk and say, now what's the consequence? And they'd say, yeah, it's Mr. Spoon. I said, all right. And so we'd minister the punishment. And then it was, okay, then it was hug. Then it was hug, words of affirmation, reassuring of your love and talking. And then it's over. No more angry mom, angry eyes, or angry dad. It was over. That's the law was broke. The penalty was paid. It's done. Come on, let's go down and have milk and cookies. And you went on. And you know what? It was like nothing lingering, none of that grudge or that yucky environment, that atmosphere. It was simple because consequences are important. And I know some parents don't want their kids to have any consequence. They'll defend their kids. They go to school. My Johnny did nothing wrong. Listen, real life is going to teach them that there are consequences. You do that at work, you get fired. You do that with your spouse, she leaves you. You want to teach consequence. And if you think you're doing the best for your son or daughter by protecting, my little Johnny would never do that at school, and you're wrong. You know what? You need to have consistent consequences. So let's leave that one. Let's move on to our next question. And or did you want to add anything to that?
Can I just say, eye contact is so important. So whatever you're doing, if it's a moment of correction, your eyes are saying so much. Where you deeply looking in, and I would say when they get older, when they are, you want to hear their point of view. You want to hear them out. What happened? This is what I saw. And hear them out, because what we are doing, we are training them in that moment. We want our kids to be assertive, but we're also saying it's not all about you, because we kids left to themselves, they're going to be selfish. You want everything to revolve around them. So what you're doing in that moment, you want to hear them out, because we want them to be able to be confident enough to speak up for themselves and say, no, I feel wrongly treated here. This is what's not fair. Gabriel started it. So all of a sudden you might just have a completely different situation on your hand. But if you just like in a hurry, you take your time, and you will be thankful that you did.
Great. Well, that's a great book, Dare to Discipline and Bringing Up Boys by Dr. James Dobson, Focus on the Family, great resources. Have a New Kid by Friday by Dr. Kevin Lehman. Excellent book. And so we've had Dr. Kevin Lehman in our church many years ago. He's got great resources for single parents and blended families as well. All right, let's go to the question number 2. When do you think kids should have a smartphone? Our kid Gabriel is turning 30 in November. He's going to get a smartphone. We're going to get him a smartphone. No, okay. This now this is a critical important because I've had questions about porn, with kids and pornography. Now, the moment you give your kid a smartphone, what happens is you've just given them a portable electronic window into everything that the world has to offer, good and bad. So your parenting can't decrease at that time, it needs to increase. Madeline said to me the other day, she goes, Anthony, would you ever drop off our kids at the red light district in the middle of the night? I'm like, are you crazy? What kind of a stupid question is that? And she says, well, that's what some parents do when they just give their kids a smartphone with no discussion. And then our government, I'm going to say this, I'm so mad. Our government can block U.S. news that doesn't support their narrative, but it can't block child pornography or pornography, period. Shows you where their values are. Anyway, just say, all right. You were going to say something before I so rudely, you forgot. Okay. All right, let's talk
No,
about.
I'm saying if the moment you give a smartphone, I mean, a cell phone used to be you called from it, and do you remember those little blackberries like with three A B C? You had to press twice. I remember those. You know what I'm saying? It took you 15 minutes to bang out a message. Well, that's not the phones that are circulating any longer. Our kids, what they got, it was like they could call us because of safety and just to know where they are and where to pick them up, or it's part of like independence and developing, and that if you give them a smartphone, all of a sudden you have a lot of work on your hands because now you're responsible to check up on them. It's got to be some accountability.
Now, in China, they just passed a law in August that if you're under the 18 years of age, you're only allowed to have 2 hours of internet access. How smart! Isn't that amazing? So, and Bill Gates never let his kids until they were 14 get a smartphone, and he still has never let them gotten an iPhone. I don't know why, but anyway, I think three questions you need to ask yourself when you hit this, and number one is, does my child make good decisions about time limits? Are they respectful of time? Can they control time? If not, or let me give you all the questions first. Does he or she have media discernment? Have you trained them with a biblical worldview to question and challenge what comes across screens, music, entertainment, all those kinds of things? Or are they just birds, little baby birds with their mouth wide open, and you're just letting them digest everything that culture and school and government and media says? Are you training them up to be different? Do they have a critical mind to discern what's coming across the screen? And the third question is he or she committed to following wise tech boundaries? And if you can't answer yes to all of those, then they're not ready for a smartphone. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so what we've done, this seminar we went to yesterday, they actually had discussion contracts and guidelines for not only video games but smartphones. And so we downloaded them onto our app. So if you get on the Calgary Life Church app, now you can download these, print these, and then use a place where you sign and your kid signs. So you have an agreement. So first of all, the kids don't own the smartphones, they're leased to them, and they can be revoked. And these are the conditions you're going to abide by. So you set the guidelines, because listen, all the dictators of the world said, just give us your kids until the age of 7, because then we got them for a lifetime. By the age of 13, their worldview is set. If you're giving your kids smartphones with no accountability, with no supervision, with no engagement, you are an idiot with a capital I, if I can put it nicely. Okay, that was harsh. I don't know, but sometimes I feel like we just need to shake people up and say that, because listen, most kids are being introduced to porn before they're even hit puberty. And if that becomes an accepted form, like the narrative that's coming out in society, and if it's not being challenged, you've just twisted that mind, possibly for the rest of their life. Our goal was, we want to raise up incredible kids that are going to be awesome, spouses to their partner. And so we want to do everything that's in our power. And so some of the guidelines you'll find there is like, all devices, laptops, cell phones, tablets should only be used, in the main level. No devices at meals. All devices go to bed downstairs from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. Something Madeleine said the other day, she goes, one of the best things that happened to us when we were starting to parent was that we were poor. We just couldn't afford to give everybody cell phones or plans. Or we had one laptop computer that was on the main level, and everybody could see where it was. There was no laptops in bed. Desktop, thank you. There was no laptops in bedrooms. There's no cell phones in bedrooms. None of that.
No, I mean, it's a real thing. It's called nomophobia, fear of not having a cell phone. So, even as grown-ups, I think that, hey, let's not put that on our kids. How do you manage your smartphone? I mean, that is a big question. I mean, I think we all have to put in disciplines in just making sure that we're not dependent on that thing. Sometimes I just have a little basket and I just walk around when they come over and just like, put it in, put it in, put it in, put it in. Even Anthony, it's just, it's so easy, distraction. No, I think as parents, hey, let's be smarter. Like, let's train ourselves to discipline ourselves and just understand that we can live without that. People don't need to get to us 24/7. That can be a great example that you're setting. Maybe we all need to just take that to heart and just like, let's not put that on our kids. And I mean, don't be unaware how the devil's scheme. I mean, just be really, really smart about it. I think that for girls, for example, and boys, like Instagram, it can look like the most innocent thing, but so much is shaped by, you think about it, it's your eyes and through your ears. That's really how we get all our impulses and all our information. So whatever you're watching, so even like body image, all these things that honestly our youth is working, dealing with. It's an epidemic, you guys. And it starts so early. Let's not, let's make it more difficult and then discuss it. I just say, parents, talk about everything. And just if you hear a comment, if they are speaking about their body, something like that, just stop everything. And that is what you're going to talk about. You're going to deal with it. You're going to, okay, why do you feel that? Has someone said anything? But let's not be naive here and not unaware of what what our kids are dealing with. And let's speak about it, let's talk about it, and let's be great examples.
There's so much. One of the things that we had in favor was that we were united together. We were both involved. And many of the questions says, what if I married someone who has completely different value, maybe a different faith, or maybe someone who's not engaged? And, one of the things that's so important is that, you get on the same page. Because if kids realize there's a difference, they're going to manipulate that gap, right? They're masters at it. And we may, maybe you need to have that time out and say, listen, mom and dad are going to go and talk about this, get on the same page, make compromise, do whatever you got to do. But when you come out, you're unified. And, I mean, I wish we had more time to, talk about even the pornography thing. One of the things is, there's different cultures. Some cultures don't even talk about sex. Never. Our table, growing up, we never talked about body parts or anything. It was taboo. And I tell you what, demons live in darkness. You keep that issue taboo. You know what? With our kids, we talked about sex, erections, menstrual cycles. I mean, we called everything by their proper name. This is an elbow, everybody. That's an elbow. You can say elbow, so why can't you say penis? Well, oh, it's taboo. No, it's a body part. We in Sweden, they had such a healthy, viewpoint on the human body and bodily functions that I think it was healthy. Here, we're so nervous, we're so uptight, and so what happens is you create cultures where you can't, the family, you can't even talk about that. Ooh, and the devil just loves that. Ooh, let's talk about sex. No, mom and dad, we talked all about it all the time. Well, they're crazy. You know what I'm saying? Bring it into the open, bring it into the light. Demons cannot live in the light. Who's going to introduce sex to your family? You. You talk about it, because then you can control the narrative. And I know it goes against many of your cultures here, but you got to do it. Create that healthy environment where you can talk about body parts in a very healthy manner. And so anyway, I've said too much, and I'm going to get emails for today for spanking and saying body parts and all that. But hey, parents, listen, we love you. As a church, we want to stand with you. We want to complement what you're doing. We want to strengthen. We want to put tools in your hand. So on the app, you have this also a quadrant of success, a diagnostic tool that I developed back in 2004. We will be doing, seminars coming up, because there's just so much to talk about, right? And but you know what? Can we do this together as a community? Because it takes a village to raise a child. We want to do this together. Let's be real. Let's be authentic. And let's call on God to help us in these things. We need God. We need to get another book on a biblical worldview. With this, I'm going to close. Is called Faithfully Different by Natasha Crane. And she talks about the worldview, because if you haven't been trained up in what the worldview is today, this kind of like doesn't make sense. But she was living in a lesbian relationship. She was a university professor in the Northeast, and she met Jesus. And you should hear her story about worldview and why. Because today, feelings are the ultimate guide. My truth, what I feel. And you know what? And if we don't, no longer is truth the absolute. Now it's my feelings. And if you go against someone's feelings, then you're a Hitler. And so that book will really help you parents to understand what's going on in families. But hey, we've gone over. Did you get anything good out of this today?